Our next speaker is Ning and Ellie Glover will join us online as well. Yeah. No problem. Let me move this.
First of all, thanks very much for this opportunity to present and more importantly, to learn here. And today, Ellie and I will share our reflections as two PGRs on decolonising the research. I'm Ning, a first-year PhD student from the School of Engineering, and my research is about engineering education. And Ellie, are you there? Hi.
I'm here. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
perfect. Okay, hi everyone. So like Ning said, I'm Ellie, and I'm from the School of Sport and Exercise Science, and I'm on the professional doctorate for sport and exercise psychology.
Thank you. We two worked together to create some resources on decolonising research for PGRs. The resources we will share with you in the end. And this project is facilitated by the Center for Educational Research and the Doctoral Academy. So I will share my experience and thoughts first, and then Ellie will share hers. And today I'd like to focus on the beginning of our research process, that is before we collect the data. So as a PhD, we all have a Gantt chart, right? So what is the very first thing we do after we start our PhD? That's very true. That's very true. After we crying and calm down, literature review. Yeah. So usually we sit there reading papers for at least 6 months or 1 year, right? And after that, we feel that we are an expert on our topic, and we are so excited to bring our knowledge to some people, to some places, and maybe solve problems. And this is exactly my experience. So my research topic is about teaching the subject-specific English, engineering English, to secondary school students in non-English speaking countries in Africa, and hopefully to international students in the UK. Because we have challenges in understanding the lessons in English. And before I go to Africa and teach there, I need to do a questionnaire survey to know what I should focus when I teach there. So I listed some aspects that I think are very relevant or important, like critical thinking, debating, presenting. But one thing seems to be missing here. What is the context where I will do my research? I remember after my supervisor saw my questionnaire, he asked me one question. Do you know Africa? And he showed me photos. So these are the classrooms in Togo. Togo is a Western African country, and I will go there to teach. And now looking back at the questionnaire I designed, do the children there really need the debating? Yeah, it's not there. Yeah, it's not relevant. So I rewrote my questionnaire. And one thing I learned from this experience is that don't address a problem that doesn't exist. Yeah. Like a poem written by a rights activist and a poet. I'm not your data, nor am I your vote bank. I'm not your project or any exotic museum object. I'm not the soul waiting to be harvested, nor am I the lab where your theories are tested. Your words, maps, figures, indicators, they all create illusions and put you on pedestal from where you look down upon me. So I draw my own picture and invent my own grammar. I make my own tools to fight my own battle. This is how local people feel about some researchers. So after that, it started my thinking and rethinking about my research. And then something made me doubt my research because some people are against teaching in English in Africa. They think we should encourage the children there to speak their own mother language. So it's like, why do we force them to speak English and learn English? And then I was thinking, oh, I'm going to teach English there. So is my whole PhD necessary? Is the research necessary, right? To teach or not teach English there? Oh, it's, yeah, I have really like, I hesitated a lot. But after that, I read a paper, and I know it's an interview with a mother of an African child. She said, our kids need English because it can help them get better jobs and have more opportunities. And then I realized, to them, speaking English is an advantage, not a disadvantage to them. For example, if I didn't speak English, I can't come to the UK and have this amazing experience. I can't listen to all of you here today and learn. And the African kids there, if they don't know English, they don't have the equal access to the online resources, the YouTube videos where they can educate themselves. And then I think, okay, it's important and necessary. To summarize my what I learned from this experience is that we as researchers should be very cautious before we do research in local areas, because even if we have good intentions, the results may not be good. And the research without decolonizing can exploit the community, can be a disaster to them, can be an extra burden to them. So we should always bear a central question in our mind. Does our research have any positive impact on the community? If not, why should we do the research? Now let's move on to Ellie's part.
Thanks, Ning, that was great. So I'm going to focus on roles within decolonisation and also the development of my personal reflections throughout the project. So this slide is sort of illustrating research aesthetics, which is something we spoke about as a whole team, and something that I came on to sort of partway through the project was my role in decolonisation as a white woman and being part of the majority of higher education populations. And this came from a previous project that I did where, very briefly, it was an EDI project, and I acknowledge that is different. But I do think there is some overlap. And the research team was diverse, but when it came to presenting the research, it was 3 white women. So that's where this conversation stemmed from. And within the team, the current team, we also spoke about the impact of non-native English speakers may lack confidence to present the research if English isn't their first language. So that was part of the research aesthetics and 2 sort of main points that we discussed. Ning, can you move it on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So continuing my understanding, continuing with my understanding of my role in decolonisation, this is sort of a brief development of my personal reflections and how that developed through engagement with the resources. I'm aware we haven't got much time, so I'm not actually going to read the extract, but it sort of just touched on that I was aware that education from primary through to higher education is westernised, and therefore the methodologies and the paradigms we have are of course going to be influenced by this. But I did sort of have trouble grasping how scientific principles are influenced by this and how they're not facts, and I found it difficult to see alternatives. And my first sort of real awareness of colonisation was in the summer of 2019, at colonisation in higher education, sorry, when the sort of the statues in the buildings named after people active in the slave trade were being protested, being renamed, things like that. But that sort of took my experience of higher education, it was sort of away from that because it seemed to me to be traditionally in red brick institutions. And I also touched upon how sort of the thought of myself being naive to colonisation in higher education, as well as the potential to unknowingly contribute to that sort of rhetoric, was quite an uncomfortable truth to acknowledge, but also a necessary one. So that was a brief points from the extract before we started this this project. So the project began and I started engaging in resources that we found, that we discussed as a team, and it was quite overwhelming. I think that's safe to say for the whole team, because of my basic understanding of decolonisation, but also the realisation of how deeply embedded it was in higher education as well as wider society. And then I started to develop an understanding of the resources we were engaging with through reflection individually and team discussion. And then this understanding made me sort of question my role within decolonisation, which is what I briefly discussed on the last slide. And then sort of where we are at now, I don't think any of us will think that we're at the end of our decolonisation journey in terms of a team or individuals. And we sort of discussed that we don't think it has an endpoint. It requires continuous learning and development. And therefore my role within that is still something that I'm considering. And I think someone mentioned this morning that sort of conscious competence, and I think that's probably where I'm at right now. Can we have the next slide, please, Ning? Thank you. And then finally, this is the outcome of our project. So the final resources Ning and I selected for PGRs, and there is a link on the slide if anyone is interested in looking further at the resources we chose. They're broken down into why, what and how, as sort of a way to guide PGRs through the resources. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. That's all. Thank you.